In this video, I'm going to be converting this old analog speedo that no longer works and these three old warning lights that look so old they may even have candles in them to a new GPS speedo with an inbuilt tachometer or rev counter and some pretty posh little LED warning lights underneath too. I'm going to be showing how it should be wired, how to do that, and it may at first to you look like it's something you might not want to tackle yourself, but really it is quite a simple job. Watch past the confusing parts. I will be explaining all to even those that do see this as a frightening task. While I'm doing it on the VN800, Vulcan 800, this should be transferable to any bike. So if it looks like something you want to do, watch on. Hello, I'm Nugsy, and this here is my 1997 VN800B, or Kawasaki Vulcan 800 Classic. I hope to bring you the occasional video on this bike as I do repairs and mods, and this very first one is necessary because the speedo has just recently stopped working on me. Through a process of trial and error, I've discovered that the speedo works because the cable will drive it. The cable works, it turns both ends, and what doesn't work is the rear wheel drive itself. There are two little gears within the drum of the rear wheel that are supposed to drive that cable, and they no longer do because they've worn and no longer contact each other. A common problem, I hear. If we could get the parts, it would be an easy enough fix, but I can't get the parts. This is a near 30-year-old bike now. You'd have to pick up a used rear wheel, which could go wrong in the future and would cost like 150 or more euro pounds. Looking into other options, I was looking at universal speedos. The last one I had was cable driven. That would obviously be no good. I can't drive a cable. There's a very popular one on like Amazon, AliExpress, Temu, anywhere like that, which only costs about 40 or 50, again euro pounds, it varies. And there are lots of videos on YouTube showing exactly how to fit and calibrate this thing, but I chose not to go for it for several reasons. One is that it requires a cable running down your fork to a sensor which picks up a pulse from magnets that you stick around your wheel in order to tell how fast you're going, like a bicycle speedo. I don't want that fitted to the front. Another reason is that this incorporates some features that I won't be able to use, like a fuel and gear indicator. I don't have the sensors for that. I don't actually have the sensors for the rev counter, but apparently that's easy enough to wire in. So I quite fancy having a rev counter on the bike. It didn't come with one, but I don't want that other useless stuff. But the main reason I chose not to get this unit was because of the location of the original speedo on this bike. It is down on the tank right in front of me, so while riding I have to physically look down to see how fast I'm going. This means if you're looking at a little LCD display with a small digital readout of your speed, you might be looking for a split second too long just to focus on it. I want a proper dial speedo where I can quickly see how fast I'm going at a glance, just like the original. So I started searching to see if there's any of these things available, and a friend gave me the idea of looking for a GPS speedo. Brilliant idea, because you don't need any sort of drive for that. You don't need a magnet pickup on the front wheel. You don't need a speedo cable. It'll pick up a signal from satellites and tell you exactly how fast you're going. It's much more accurate than the original speedo on this bike. So in searching for GPS speedos, I found quite a plethora of them, and again some of them had fuel gauges and things I can't use, but I'd come across one that was perfect. It had the analog looking but GPS controlled speedometer as the main feature, with a little rev counter underneath which revs up to 8,000 RPM. I don't know how fast the Vulcan 800 revs, so I googled it, and apparently it's about 8,000. A little bit over that hits the limiter, so perfect. So I've gone and ordered that unit, and I'm going to be fitting that to this bike, but I'm going to try and do it in a way that you can use this tutorial for any bike. If you're just adding a rev counter to a bike with just a speedo, this is a good way to do it. Again, if your speedo drive is buggered on any sort of bike, this is the way to do it. If you have a Vulcan 800, it might be easier because all your wiring will be exactly the same as mine as well. But I'll show you how to discover what you need to do with your own wiring anyway. Okay, so let's take a look at what we're doing here. This is the original console of the VN800. It has the speedo, which has a backlight. Within that speedo there's a neutral light and a high beam light. Down below that unit then are 3 warning lights. Mine are painted over, but on the original bike they're marked oil pressure on the left, turn signal indicator, which is just one light for either your left or your right, and then on the right is the water temperature. Now, comparing with what I'm going to fit, the new speedo has much the same. We've got the main unit with a backlight, you have the high beam, but you don't have a neutral on this one. What we do have incorporated in the clock is a pair of indicator warning lights, one for left, one for right. So we can take the feed to the original signal warning light, which is actually the wiring for both left and right, which is perfect, that's what we need, and we can simply move that up to the speedo to give us individual left and right indicators, leaving that empty green light down the bottom, which you've probably guessed it by now, is going to become our new neutral light. It may still be marked as indicators if you've like a dead stock Vulcan 800. Mine's painted over, so it doesn't matter to me, but you just have to keep it in your head that that's neutral, unless you go the route I'm going, because I'm going a step further with this. I did a bit of searching and discovered again on AliExpress you can pick up little LED lights to replace these, but instead of just lights they actually have the little warning symbols for individual purposes. So I'm getting a little oil pressure warning, a little neutral light, and a little water temp light as well, and they're going to fit perfectly in those holes. I've measured the holes and ordered the correct size, so they will replace those 3 lights. And the only other thing is, now when you take the speedo out, you've got to first remove that knob on the left that you turn to reset your trip meter, leaving a hole in the side of the console. Now you could just stick a rubber grommet in there or something, grommet cap thing, but with this speedo the reset button is underneath it, and by mounting it in this console you can no longer access that button. Therefore they have wired into it, there's a white wire coming from it for an external switch. So you can get a little push button to fit that hole, and I have ordered one, which will operate the button on the bottom of the speedo unit, so you don't have to get your finger in there to do it. Little side push button, and that will reset the trip meter, or if you hold it, go into menu mode. So I have it all planned out, and in fact I had it all planned out before I even ordered anything. Wiring and everything. Just needed to make sure it would all work and I was buying the correct things. So what I have bought is as follows. The main speedo unit itself is an 85mm unit, which means it fits an 85mm hole. Yes, Americans, that's millimeters. I've brought the 3 separate warning lights, which work out to be fairly expensive since Europe has introduced a new bastard tax, adding €3 on to every order, or every item in an order, for customs. And that €1.11 little push button for the side turned out to be nearly €5. I also ordered a multi-pack of those automotive electrical connectors. I need 2 6-pin pieces, and there are 3 in that set, and some others I could use too. Actually works out cheaper than buying them individually. And then I treated myself to a little pair of black mirrors as well, because I don't know if you noticed, I've been kind of deleting the chrome on my bike. So that's the items and the prices there, total on screen. And as I'm still awaiting delivery on these items, we'll just get ready. So first things first, off with the speedo. On the VN800, it's just 1 bolt. Mine's Allen key, I've replaced the bolts, but it's usually an 8mm bolt. You just undo that one and you can remove that whole console. Now usually there would be a speedo cable to disconnect from there, unscrew. Mine's already gone from previous experimentation. So now it's just these 2 electrical connectors. You just push the little tab and pull on those and they'll come apart, and that whole unit now lifts away. I'm going to do this job so as I don't have to mess with the wiring loom within the bike itself. I will have the same connectors plug in right back in where they left, just with a different pin out to those connectors, that's all. Now, looking at these connectors on mine, it's fairly easy to see what's what, because after a little wipe I can see the colours on the wires, I can see the other ends of the wires and where they plug in. That one plugs into the main light for the dial, or that pair I should say. This pair goes into that little bulb which comes through to the high beam indicator, and therefore the neutral has to be the other 2 wires. Now I discovered that these do not share a ground or earth wire with the other 2 lights, so that's a separate pair, and they all come through to here. The single ground wire in black and yellow is split to go to the 2 bulbs, and they have their own lives. So here's a little diagram of the wiring for this one, and you can pause, screenshot, whatever you need to do with that. But if you're working with a different bike and you can't see where the wires go, this is how I did it. I used a 12-volt adapter to provide power to the pins and see what happens, basically. Now you could just cut the end off the adapter and, you know, bare the wires, but I've used a little piggy back connector thing, and using the ends of those I've actually put a little blade connector on one of them on the earth, because that will clip straight onto the earth within this plug. So I'll do that first of all. The earth is the middle one at the bottom there, and once that's on, I have now a bare live 12-volt feed, and I'm going to try and make that headlight, the main beam indicator light up. I can see that's a red and black, but you might not be able to see it yourself, so you just touch on the other posts until that lights up, and you'll determine where within that plug your high beam comes through. The earth is the only one you really need to be able to see to get started on this, and there it goes, we've got high beam. Now I was trying to film this for you and show you the main dial illumination, but it seems my bulb was gone, so I can't. It was working last time I tested it in order to get the diagram sorted. When it comes to the neutral, you have to put the earth on another one, and turns out they're fussy, you've got to do it the other way around. And there we have neutral light flashing on. So that's how you can determine what goes where on your own speedo if you've got an awkward one. But mine, like I said, is nice and easy, and I've shown you the pinout. Then we got the 3 little warning lights that sit below it. They've each got the same type of connector. As I said, they're going to go straight back in and plug underneath the tank where they came from. Again, with this set of 3 lights, it's real easy to see what's what. You've got a pair coming off each of those bulbs, and you can see exactly where they go into that little plug. So using this information, and given what I've bought, I have come up with the following wiring diagrams before I start anything physical, because luckily you can download the instructions and there's a picture on the listing of exactly what wires do what on that speedo unit. Now, I'm no auto electrician, so I don't mind admitting to you at this point that from this part of the video on, I had already recorded, and at the end it turned out that nothing worked right. I'd got it all wrong. So I'm here starting over. The image on screen now is just the main bits that we've got to connect up. So we're going to go through it step by step. Bottom left you see the back of the speedo, on which it's all written out what wires do what, and it's numbered from 1 to 10. I have highlighted 1 to 5 in green, which refers to the bottom set of wires, and in pink I've highlighted numbers 6 to 10, which refer to the top set of wires. So we shall go through these in order and connect them to the right places. Number 1, black, ground. This needs extending to ground. The negative terminal of the battery is a good solid ground every single time. I myself chose to put it to a bare metal part of the frame, and I took a bolt off the top of the radiator cap thing and took a Stanley knife blade, scraped it down to bare metal, slipped a connector in there and tightened it back down, and that is a good solid earth. That's basically what the negative terminal of the battery is attached to anyway. It just meant less wire used over the shorter distance. So that is nice and simple, but if you get your earth wrong and you get a bad earth, then everything goes wrong. So now on to number 2. It says red 9 to 32 volts DC. This will work on 12 or 24 volt systems. We're working with 12, that's in that range, perfect. This needs to go to the positive terminal of your battery, but not directly. It needs that power from the battery, but only after the ignition is turned on. If it goes direct to the battery, you'll just run your battery flat. It'll always be hooked up, it'll always be searching GPS signals. We've got to find a point in your wiring loom somewhere where you have a 12-volt feed that only appears after the ignition is turned on. I will go through where I found it on mine, and you can find it on your own bike if you're riding something different. You'll need a multimeter to find this. So this is where this comes into it. So running on voltage, range, volts. We'll have 0.00 volts, that'll do that. So we're looking for 12. First of all, let's attach this to an earth to make life easier. I'm going to go straight onto the battery's earth. And clip that onto there. Just don't show the negative, the positive with it. Right. Now I need to use this to probe for a live 12-volt feed. Ignition is now on, and when I took the tank off earlier, I had to unplug this because it was bridged over, like a little arch built in into the tank. So I'm thinking there's got to be one of these 12-volt in here. Look at that, 12.58, that's good. So that's this corner. If I turn the ignition off, try again, bugger all, excellent, that's the one we need. The very second one I picked. You're bound to find one in a connector like that. So we now know where to tap in. Yes, I'll have to do it that way. Cut that. It's a brown and white wire. And there's not much space to play with it. Come on, right. So I'm going to want to make up a connector with a wire now, long enough to come out to, well, just here really. In with this slot would be nice. And bring the coil wire through to this slot as well. So that's going to go in to the top end of the slip wire over there, sharing with the other. And then I'll need a male on the other end of the one I just snipped. And that branches off a 12-volt live feed to this. Perfect. First things first, is there enough to get that on? No. That should be enough to do us now. Oh, if I can hold it all in, I can do this. That's got it, right, okay. I wonder if I can squeeze that out through the top here, because that's how I wanted it. I can. You can't see this because it's around the other side. I'm just going to put the connector, the male spade, onto there, same thing, crimp it. Now that can go back into there, reconnecting where it was, and now we have a little spur for the 12-volt feed for the clocks. Perfect. Like I said, I'm going to wrap that up in a bit of tape. I'll put it right around the lot. Hey-ya! There we have it. On to number 3. The blue wire here is labelled RPM signal. Now this is what provides a feed to the rev counter within this unit, and that feed is picked up from the negative terminal of your ignition coil. That's the bit that feeds the spark plug. So in order to get this blue wire down to the coil, the tank and the seat have to be off the bike to start with. I'm not going to go that in depth. You should be able to take your seat and tank off. But now you'll be able to see the coil underneath on the left hand side on the VN800. Locate yours if you've got a different bike. I was able to see it's got a red and a black wire feeding into that coil. So obviously it's going to be the black one is the negative. That's the side we need. So unplugging that, I see it's a female spade connector. So what I need to do is I put a male spade connector into that with 2 wires coming from it. The one is going to trace all the way back to this speedo unit. That's the blue wire that we're dealing with now. And the other just to another female spade connector to reattach to the coil. And that way you're effectively taking 2 lines out of one. Now we have so far the black, the red and the blue all wired up, and these 3 are sort of away off into the bike. So it's a good idea for these 3 wires to put in a plug and socket, even just spade connectors on them, so that you can actually remove the console with the speedo and all that while the rest of it is wired into the bike. So I used the connectors from that multi-set that I picked up. I used a 3-pin, red, black and blue, and that can be disconnected at any time. Okay, to carry on now, we've got number 4, the yellow. That is for the backlight. Now the backlight goes into the, at least on my bike, it's a white 6-pin connector that was originally on the pigtail from the speedo unit, and it's the top left as per the diagram I put up earlier. The white number 5 is for high beam, and that also goes up into that same connector block in the opposite corner, bottom right. So yellow top left, white bottom right. Okay, so onto the top set of wires. First of all, number 6 and number 7, brown and green, are labelled buzzer alarm positive and negative. And you see here I've put a little like no symbol over those, because just no. The idea is here you can put a buzzer, that's a positive and negative for a buzzer, which you can set to sound if you go over a set speed limit. Oh my good God, if you think that's a good idea, you should get a moped. So I'm just gonna blank those 2 off and never use them, which makes wiring easier. We're straight on to number 8, which is yellow, kind of mustardy yellow. That is your left turn, which operates the left turn indicator light within the face of the speedo. And grey, number 9, is the right turn. So we need a feed for the indicators. Now initially, from this black plug that's on the pigtail of the light cluster, that has an indicator warning light. and that has a green and a grey wire feeding it. And I've checked into the manual and the wiring diagram, and they are your positive left and positive right for the indicators. However, try as I might, I could not get those to work. I don't know why, because they should just be another version of what I ended up installing, but I just did it the long way. I went into the headlight and tapped into the feed for the left and right indicators in there. I basically put another wire into the connectors, into the bullet connectors there for the positive. One is grey and one is green, just as you'd expect, and I traced the cable back through under the tank to where it needs to be. Do let me know down below if you got the other two wires to work for you, because for some reason they just wouldn't work for me. They should do. The next one is the last one, number 10. That is X button, external button. Okay, this it might not be necessary for you. It depends on the bike and how you're mounting this Speedo. With mine, because it's going in that center console, getting sunk into a hole basically, this black button on the left at the bottom of the Speedo here is going to be hidden from sight. I'm not going to have access to it, and that is the button you need to press or press and hold to either go into your menu settings, change the colours of the lights and things like that, or just reset your trip meter. So because I can't access that, they have put this white cable out so as you can put an external button to operate that same button. So that's a white positive to a switch, and it's called a momentary switch. Basically, you don't switch it on with one press and then switch it off with another press. It's just you press it and it closes the circuit. You release it and it's open again, as in on off. So you can press or press and hold, whatever. It'll always spring back to the off position. And then that is continued from the other terminal with a negative or ground back to share the same ground we did in step number 1. So that is to be spliced. And that's it with the wiring from the back of the Speedo. But we've got these lights to sort out as well. A little cluster of 3 lights below the Speedo, oil, indicator and temperature with the original lights. As I explained earlier, we don't need that indicator light now because we've got 2 indicator lights up in the dash, up in the Speedo face. But because we don't have a neutral light up there, that middle green light is going to become our new neutral light. So if I just put in these black things that they represent the underneath of these lights, or the new LED lights that I've bought. Very simple, they just have a positive and negative terminal on each of them. So to wire these, well, first of all, the outside two, the oil and the temperature, go into the exact same holes as they did on the original. So we have a split earth. The bottom middle one from the plug comes out and is going to become the earth for both oil and water. And the water temp is red and blue. That comes along to the top left. The oil in yellow and white comes along to the top middle. So just as they were before, but with a new plug. The middle one, that gets its wiring from elsewhere, because this came from the original clock. So if you look at the original wiring diagram of what was there in the first place, in the white 6-pin plug, which fed the clock, the Speedo, top middle was green, top right was brown. That's your pair for neutral, and they're going to come along to power that light in this cluster. Okay, next I've added in a couple more pairs of plugs and sockets. So I explained earlier we got one for the ignition, so that this lot can be removed while that's wired into the bike. But if we put a 2-pin, or again you could just use spade connectors, even screw block terminals if you like, whatever you have, but it is handy to be able to split these wires to take one item off and not the rest. So I've got a 2-pin in those neutral wires, and for the indicator warning lights I took a feed from the front indicators, if you recall, and I put a 2-pin in there as well. And the reason being, you can isolate these individual portions, if you like, from the main speedo unit. So what we've seen so far is in what fashion the wiring needs to be put together. I haven't shown you yet how to do that physically, and it's not the scope of this video to walk you through every single little plug that I put in this. I'll show you the gist of it and how I've actually built up the wiring, and you do that in the fashion that I've shown through the video so far. So first of all, like when this speedo comes out the box, you just got these 10 wires coming out the back of it, and they're fairly long too. I took the liberty of cutting those down to a reasonable length so it's still comfortable to fit under the tank, but without having to cram too much in there. I left a couple of them longer, they're the ones that go off into the bike a bit further, and then I start kind of pairing them off, if you like, bunching them together. First things first, those two I'm not going to need. That is the brown and green wires from the top of the unit for the buzzer alarm. I'm not fitting that thing. If you do, bully for you. But I'm just cutting them off, and to seal that I'm putting a piece of heat shrink tubing. It's very handy to have a set of this stuff, and then just snipping the top off above where the wires are bared. Because this is still hot, it actually seals the end. Or you could take the easy option and just tape it up. I'll say at this point, you don't actually need all the correct gear for this job. Like, I bought this pack of 2 to 6 pin automotive electrical connectors because they match what is under my tank and will plug straight in there. You could cut what's under your tank and fit all the wires together with just those. You get a big multi-pack of those blue plastic covered crimping pieces. A big set like that should sort you out for all these. It's not as good or tidy, but it'll do the job. Connector blocks will do the job. I wouldn't go as far as soldering, because then nothing would be removable, and I think it's important to be able to remove the individual items from your bike. So same with heat shrink tubing. I have an assorted set of heat shrink tubing, and it comes in real handy for so many jobs. It's not very expensive, but without that you could just use electrical tape and bind everything up that way. It's up to you how neat you want to make it, but do make it so that you can take things apart again. So back with this. Yeah, I'm separating these three. These are red for positive 12 volt, black for the earth or ground, and blue for the pickup to the coil for the rev counter. They're going off to a connector, so they're separated. I've got a white and a yellow here. They're going off to the white connector under the tank that came off the old speedo. So that's the same sort of connector as this Speedo connector, but brand new. So they come off separately as a pair. And there's the two for the indicators as well. Yellow and grey for the indicators. So separating all these, I'm putting some heat shrink tubing on so that they can make like different tails coming off to different plugs. I'm putting on several pieces of heat shrink tubing all the way up there, just to make it look nice. And then to fit a 2-pin plug on the end of this, I need to crimp onto it 2 pins. Now I thought that these big special crimping pliers I have are specifically for this type of crimping pieces, but I couldn't work out how it's supposed to work. I don't know if it is the right tool, and I don't know what I'm doing or what, but I have reverted to just doing it with needle nose pliers. And it's a simple thing, fiddly but simple. You get your little crimping piece, and these are the male connectors that go into the male end of the block. I'm keeping female under the tank because that's what's there already. Male coming out of the unit. So I take a male connector, lay the wire inside the little leaves of it, if you like, and then with the pliers I carefully close down one side over the wire and squeeze down nice and hard on that so it traps the wire in there hard. Then you fold down the opposite side, squeeze down nice and hard, and that wire isn't going anywhere. The 2 bigger leaves at the back, they should now fold down and crimp onto the nylon covering of that cable, and again squeeze down nice and hard. Once you've got both of those connectors onto the ends of the wires, they just slip into the plastic plug, and there's like a little catch on there, little almost like a barb, if you like, so it's a sprung barb. So when you push them into the connector, that little barb springs out and catches it in there, so it can't come back out again unless you press that in from the other side. So once they're in, that is the plug sorted and ready to use on the bike. We're going to basically do the same thing in the same fashion for all the items on this. I'm going to be using a mixture of heat shrink tubing and insulation tape, different sized plugs, and at the end of it, this is what we're looking at. Now this unit is ready to fit. So this is the unit ready to fit. We have all the lights wired up as I've shown. The switch is wired up, and I did show earlier that because the switch wouldn't work when I first tried it, I tried using a different earth. So I tried tapping into this earth. That's no good. So that earth is now useless. I'm just gonna get rid. No need to confuse you anymore with that one. So yes, that does work now, but the reason it wasn't working is because on the bottom of the switch it has a positive and negative mark next to 2 terminals, and I was connecting those up. Turns out you've got to turn them around the other way in order to get the light working. It's the other 2 operate the switch. The ones I thought were for the LED. So now it's all working properly. That is just connected with spade connectors, so disconnectable. Everything here is disconnectable, as I said. You can take this whole unit out. The only exception being that GPS thing down beyond my thumb there. That's a coaxial cable, and it screws into the back of the unit and is wired onto the front of the bike. So I mean, I could unravel that and take it over to the table and work on it, but you would have to unscrew that GPS thing to fully remove it, which is a bit of a pain. In order to get the GPS in, I have had to drill a hole here. I've drilled it a little bit too far forward. It should be a little bit back from that. But yeah, it's quite tall and will kink on this little bit of framework here. So you can't really get it in from the side, you have to get it in from above. Now I want to show you this up close, bugger. When these are fitted to the little faceplate there, and you try and put it back in, these nuts prevent it going back in because they're a little bit too big. So I've had to like Dremel away a little bit here and here, just to be able to fit that faceplate back on nice and flush. So all the wiring from the clock now comes out to these connectors. I'll start with this one. That's just the neutral light, sort of between the two. So that's already connected up. These are the ones for the original sockets under the tank. They are now only populated with 4 and 3 pins instead of 5 in each. This one here is the indicator for the indicator feed, which comes up from the headlight, and this one here is for the earth, the live feed and the coil pulse signal. This is so fucking awkward, it just wants to slide away. So these 2 plugs I have actually cut short with a little Dremel tool because they were failing. In the first place, the pins were sort of pushing and bending out the way as I was pushing these into the connectors, because they're cheap and nasty and flimsy. So bringing it back this far still seals it nicely when they're covered, when they're connected, but I can actually see the pins going in the holes now as I connect them up. So let's get that out of the way first. Let's do this one first. This is the indicators. And the little 2 pin and the 3 pin, they go in nice and easy. This is the 3 pin. That one is for the power, earth and coil. They are now connected. Come on, that'll do. So we've got a white and a black, and that wants to fall now. I'm just going to keep my eye on these and make sure they're lining up with the holes. That's gone in sweet as. And that's upside down at the minute, there we go. Sweet as. Everything now is connected up, including the GPS. So seat the rubber, make sure he's all tucked in there, and oh, there it is. Okay, that's in position. Before I do though, I want this mounted, so I've just slipped it down here behind the radiator. There's a nice little 10mm bolt. I should just be able to clamp him on there. It's sort of out in the open, shouldn't be too hidden, but hidden enough for my liking. So just slap that on there, that in there, do him back up, keep him kind of upright. Not that that matters, I don't think. There we go. Now, next time I'm in there, I can tuck that back in tighter. Okay, ignition on. and boom, we have oil and water temps. We have neutral, and just to make sure, neutral is working proper. We have a backlit illumination, which was red to start with, but I have changed it. So this light's off, lights on. High beam gives a little high beam light. Left indicator, right indicator. This little screen here is absolutely tiny. Surge GPS. Now when you first plug this unit in, it takes a while, but every subsequent one, as long as you're not, as I am, inside a barn, it should connect fairly quickly. It's connected now anyway. It's 0 kilometers, so I've reset the trip meter, and that's how much I rode on it. Okay, let's start it up and just make sure the rev counter works, and I know it does. I've tested it. I haven't needed choke for a little while. It's quite cool today though. Did you see how that was behaving then? It works, but there's like almost a full second lag before it gets to where it needs to be. Now I was hoping it'd be nice and smooth like every other rev counter I've had, where you could just blip the throttle and it would go win. It doesn't work like that. It somehow, it just sort of is behind, which is, when you're up and running, it's fine. But for quick changes of acceleration, like it doesn't keep up. I'm not bothered by that, because I have already learned something massive from having a working speedo, and that is I have been changing up. Like if I'm accelerating, getting up to speed and going for it, I must have been changing up before 6,000. Yet on testing yesterday, I did rev it out to 8,000 and it gets there, and I've never dared rev it that high, but this does really rev high. Not like my little ZZR 250 with a 14,000 RPM red line, but it sounds like it's really busy, and I just never thought this bike had it in it, but it does. So having a rev counter does open your eyes to just how you can put this through its paces. I did do a little road test with a very much jerry-rigged disc camera, sort of rigged up on a DIY thing to look over the clocks as I was riding, and the quality of footage is second to none. Have a look at this. Yeah, it doesn't tell you much, but it does tell you it was working. So anyway, in the first place, yeah, we've got to do whatever programming we need. And now I've got this button working. I'm going to zoom in again. In fact, let's center that. I was going to pinch out the screen there. Oh, feckin' idiot. Right. Now, a little bit smaller so you can see when I'm pressing the button as well. There we go, right. So if I just short press this button, you see it says set rate pulse. If I press it again, it goes to set speed alarm. Ah, we don't want that. Press it again, it goes back to the GPS. So you press it once, just a short press to set rate pulse, and then long press to go into set rate. You'll see now this is set on 001. It's after 3 seconds it has accepted 001 and gone back to this. So you would have to then get out of it by pressing that twice to go back to GPS. So in there, long press, set rate, and if you long press again, you'll see it goes up 0.1 at a time. The longer you hold it, the faster it goes. Oh my good God, it's gone up to 20. I'll let that remember it. So if I long press again to go back into set pulse rate, it's on 20. So long press again and it starts going the other way, because each time you do it, it goes up or down. So if I release now on 12 and then long press again, or 12.4, you'll see it goes 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, it goes up again. Release, press and hold, and it starts going down again. So that's how you do it. And I'm looking for 1, which is the lowest setting. Now, that works for this bike. It has this twin cylinder with a single coil. I don't understand all the technicalities behind it, to be honest with you, but it was going to be 1 or 2. I tried 2 and it was terrible. So again, you know, I did that thing, set pulse rate, hold the button until it goes up to 2. And it's awkward to stop on 2 because it keeps going down the next time you do it. So you've got to go up 7, 8, 9, 2. There we go. Leave it at that and it'll set itself on 2. I believe if you've got 2 coils, you might do that. So anyway, hold, and it'll start climbing, I think. No, it'll start lowering. 1. That's what we need for this particular bike. If you're not sure on your bike, experiment with 1, experiment with 2. I doubt you're going to need any other number, because this will do like a V12. And you need a different number for that, alright. Again, short press to go through back to GPS. So that's what happens when you just short press the button. It goes into that menu. If you long press, it'll first zero your trip meter, but it's also changed the color of the backlight. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm back on set rate for some reason. Let's get out of that. Okay, so long press from here, and we get all the different colors. That's what it looks like when you get it out of the box. That's the red. That's nice. But I started on green because this is a dark green tank. It's the wrong green. It matches the neutral, but you know, I think I'm going the classic route with the white. So I'm just going to leave it like that now, and it'll except that. And that's all you can do with that button. So it's long press to reset trip meter, and if you leave it long enough to change the colours, just keep doing so until you're back to your colour. But it doesn't take as long a press to change the trip meter as it does to change the colour. So maybe a 2-second press for trip meter and 3 seconds for colour. I'm not sure, I haven't timed it. Short press to get into the menu, and then long press to select whatever is in the menu. Right, I think that's covered it all. I really hope this has helped someone out there to make this modification themselves. If you've any questions, leave them down below. I'll try and answer as best I can, but I'll tell you now, I'm not going to know what colour wire is where on your bike. Good luck with yours, and I may see you whenever next time is.